So, welcome everyone to the fourth episode of our podcast. Our guest today is Sylvia Massy, a recording and mixing and mastering engineer from the United States. Sylvia, thank you for taking time. We're very happy to have you on here today.
I'm glad to be here. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. You've worked with some of the very big and internationally known artists like Prince, for example, Tool, and even Johnny Cash. So that's very impressive. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself for the people that may not know you that well?
Well, I've been producing and engineering for around, 35 years, something like this. And
Wow.
so I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different artists and different genres of music, and I enjoy every genre of music. So I try to get the experience of working on all different types of music if I get the chance.
Okay, fair enough. Do you have a certain genre you like to work with the most, or are you open for everything and basically try everything out?
Oh, I like it all. I think I have a soft spot for pop music, so
Hmm.
I like to find pop artists with good songs. It's all about the songs. Like if there's a good song, you could put it in any genre and it'll work. So I'm looking for the songs, number one. And then the texture of the music is also interesting to me with instrumentation. So I'll especially look for types of music that use unusual instruments whenever I can.
Okay, well, that's actually perfect because you do record in very unusual and uncommon ways, I'd say.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yes, I've seen a few of your videos on your website, and that is actually really impressive. Like the one with the nuclear power plant, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We recorded in a cooling tower at an abandoned nuclear power plant in Washington State here in the United States, and that was. If you can imagine acoustic spaces like that, it's a giant concrete tower, like a silo almost. And so the reverberation inside it was really exciting. And the recording turned out very good.
Yes, yes. I haven't heard the record yet, but I saw your video and you hit that snare, and that was just crazy.
Yeah, crazy. You're right. Yeah, some of those places can be very exciting. And then some places, you think it's going to sound different than it actually does. And there's surprises there too.
Oh yeah, I bet, probably a lot. So how do you ever like come up with those ideas, or how do you get the idea of doing crazy stuff like that?
Well, whenever I can, if I'm reading or just in my regular day, I might learn about an unusual space or place that I will think, put that in the back of my mind, put it on a clipboard somewhere in my brain so that I can remember that for the future, because it may have some acoustic property that will be exciting for recording. As well, it could be that the space is inspirational, not necessarily acoustically interesting, but that if you have a musician standing in a certain place, you might get a real interesting performance from them just by being in this unusual place.
Right, right.
For instance, I had an artist in when I was working at Castle Rohrsdorf outside of Dresden,
Hmm.
and we went into the Masters Art Museum and did some recording, and we did it, kind of on the sly. We didn't actually get permission, but
Okay.
we just went in with our admission and looked at the big paintings. There's a Raphael, and then we had the singer sing in front of the art, and the quite special, and we used it, and it was very usable on the recording, the finished recording, but not necessarily for the acoustics, but for the inspirational value. It worked well working in the art museum.
Yeah, that's cool. So you basically just went there and thought, you were gonna give it a shot and try it out, and it actually worked out pretty well then, I guess.
Yeah, well, first we weren't sure if we would even be able to get in because we didn't really have permission and didn't expect to get permission, and we weren't really noisy or, rude. We just snuck in very quietly, and I had a microphone and a recorder, and then we just brought it out at the right time, and he recorded. And then I brought it back to the studio and then worked it into the song. It worked great, actually. So
Yeah, probably a lot of trial and error there.
yeah, and sometimes you have a great idea and you think it's going to be brilliant, and then it turns out not to be so good after all. Like one time we had a guitar solo, and we thought, well, why don't we get the sound of the guitar falling off a cliff? So in fact, we were at a studio that was overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Malibu, California, and there was a cliff. So we brought the guitar cabinets up to the cliff, and then we got the guitar to have a beautiful feedback, and then we threw it over the cliff and recorded it as it tumbled down the hill. And none of us will ever forget the experience. But unfortunately, the recording, when we tried to use it in the finished song, it didn't really help. It just didn't work, so we wound up not using it. But because everyone was looking forward to the day when we were going to do this thing, we had planned on throwing the guitar off the cliff from the first day of the session. So we had a sacrificial guitar, and everyone carved their name in it and painted it and decorated it because it was, going to be thrown off the cliff. And so everyone put a little bit of themselves into this project, and then it was more about the action of throwing it off the cliff, perhaps as the final event in the making of that record. And so we'll never forget it, but unfortunately it didn't work as far as the recording part went.
That's too bad, actually. That would have been very interesting to listen to as well.
Yeah, well, I still have the recording. It might work in something else, but for that, it was just fine without it. That record didn't need it.
Okay, yeah, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
But just make sure that if you ever get to use it, you want to hit me up and let me know.
Okay, yeah. It was quite noisy.
Yeah, well, that is, yeah, it's just so random because you as an engineer, you have, your studio and the perfect acoustics basically, and, just a dream for bands and recorders and engineers, and then you just do random, crazy, and probably fun stuff like that. And like, how do you find those spots?
Well, I am always looking for a place like there is a cave in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico that has a beautiful turquoise pool of water, and there's a platform in there. You have to go down into it somehow. But this is a place I really want to record. And then there's another idea that I have about working in a glacier. Now, Iceland has glaciers that you can actually go in. They've tunneled in and created rooms inside the glacier. And I thought, well, this might be an interesting place to record too. And so these, again, I'm always like writing it down on a list. Okay, there's this idea and this idea. And now if I work with an Icelandic band, some musician from Iceland, well, I'll be sure to bring that up and say, hey, while we're here in Iceland, why don't we just go over to this place, And I have a special rig that I bring to record, and I've got this little unit right here, and it's got a battery pack, and
Okay.
and it's got 8 mic preamplifiers in it, so you can plug 8 mics into it, and
All
it's
right.
completely portable, and it interfaces with Pro Tools, but it is a standalone recorder. So I can pack that. This is what I used in the art museum. I actually had it under my coat, and and then I turned it on and brought the microphones out just at the right time. No one even knew I had it there. We tried to bring in instruments, and they said, no, you can't bring in the instruments, but they didn't check my coat. And it's called the Mix Pre 10.
Mix Pre 10.
And it's
Okay.
very handy to have.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you like to do remote recording, that's the thing to get.
Well, you got me interested for sure now with all your ideas. So, but are you never afraid that, when you're in a cave or a glacier, that, the sound, the vibrations will, have it break down or something?
Well, I never really actually thought about that, but I think we would be careful. If it was in danger of collapsing, then we would be very quiet. But
Okay.
but there are places that I was scared to be in. One place was in Merkers, Germany. Actually, we went to the Merkers show mine, which is a huge salt mine, a very famous salt mine. And there was an elevator that went down into the mine to get to where we were going to record. And then we landed in the bottom of the elevator, and then we took a little electric car through these tubes, the pitch black, and all the way to this giant room of salt. And the thing is, for one thing, we were very, very far away from everything. And we were very deep in the earth. And so that was a bit unnerving. But the place sounded completely different than I thought it would. I thought it would be echoey, like a big concrete room. But in fact, salt is porous. So it was quiet. It was actually absorptive. So when we were doing some acoustic guitar recording, and I had mics set up, and I thought, well, this is going to be a big sound, but it wasn't. Actually, it was very intimate, more intimate in this giant salt room. And that was quite strange, but that was an interesting experience. And another time, we went into these tombs in just outside of Rome. There's a place with Etruscan tombs, and many of these, I guess all of the tombs are empty, but they were built, thousands of them, in this kind of the city of the dead there. And we got to go into some of the tombs, and we found a good tomb for recording, except for the bats. We got rid of the bats, and then we set up and we did some recording, and we recorded a song with a band called Spiritual Front. And holy cow, it was not a acoustically interesting space. Well, it was, but what happened with the performers when they were in this tomb was so deep and real. When they performed this song, there was something else that was happening there, and it was because of the environment that they were in. And so I had my sound devices and recorded it. It was fantastic.
Well, yeah, that's certainly interesting. And I can imagine that, as you just said, that the surrounding just has a well, fairly big impact on the artists and their performance, even
Yeah.
though, they might not even notice, right?
Right. And if you think about it, when you're recording a singer, if they're in a studio, they're going to give you one type of performance. But if they're in a cathedral, they'll give you a different performance. And I think that really enhances the performance to give them a certain space to work in. And the more interesting the space that they're singing in, the less they're thinking about how their throat is not working, because singers really are so self-conscious that they oftentimes can't get their brain out of their throat. So if you distract them with the surroundings, then maybe they'll give you a different type or better performance. And usually that does help. You can work the opposite way too. You can put a singer in a very claustrophobic place, like a closet with no light, and make them crouch down because they can't. Maybe it's a very small room, and then make them sing, and you will get an entirely different performance that way too. So I have fun torturing singers a lot.
I see that, yeah. Well, so you mentioned before that at the castle, I believe it was, that you kind of snuck in and recorded. So in
Yes,
general, is it difficult to get permissions to record at, special places like that, or are people rather happy to have something cool and special happen there?
well, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes we don't expect to get permission. And then sometimes you have to pay. So, like I did a recording in the London Underground in an abandoned London subway station.
Okay, cool.
And I wanted to, well, obviously we were going to need permission to get there because everything is locked up. And so I negotiated with the transportation division there in London for about 2 months to get permission to go into this station. And we finally negotiated a price of £1,000 for 1 hour. And
Wow, okay.
now it was also 400 steps down into the earth, and that was part of our hour. So we geared up with backpacks and all the gear we needed, and we our clock started, and we ran down the steps as fast as we could and set up on 2 different abandoned platforms, and we recorded drums on one platform and vocals and guitar on another platform, and we got everything done in 1 hour. And we trudged our way back upstairs. Now there was no elevator for us; we had to actually walk up and down to
Wow.
get there. But yeah, sometimes it costs a lot. Now Chris, my manager, he helps to get permission with some places. Like we had the recording in the nuclear power plant. Chris actually negotiated over a series of months to get permission, and that also cost to get access to that place. But if we plan our recording right, well, then we have some money left over for these kind of things. It's all part of being a producer and budgeting in a way where we can do these things. Another situation was in Prague, in the castle at Prague. There is a cathedral there in the palace, and it has a bell tower that's quite famous. And we had the singer Adrian T. Bell. His name was Bell, and we were going to the bell tower, but he actually knew the people that were ringing the bells, and they would ring it every day at the same time. So we did get permission to go up into the bell tower and record these bells, and that was one of the most exciting things that I've ever done. And that again was like running up the stairs.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stairs to get up to the top of the bell tower. Good exercise, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, I can imagine. But those bells must be huge.
Oh my God, they were giant, and there were maybe 15 of them, and these people
Oh,
are like
okay.
pulling the ropes and getting them moving, and then they start ringing, and oh wow, it was so exciting. That was a very special time to record. You know, each of these events, I call it adventure recording. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a way to help the artist to get excited about the project, and oftentimes we'll discuss different things that we can do in the beginning of the project, so that we kind of save this as the reward.
Okay,
So
yeah.
if we do all our recording and we get all the guitar tracks and all the guitar, the vocals and all the editing and everything done, then we can go have this reward and go have fun and do this thing. So it helps to lubricate all the recording, I think,
Hmm.
because people are thinking, hey, if we can get everything done, we have time and we have a budget to do this last thing.
Hmm.
But if they go over and they start getting really picky with things, then we don't have time and we run out of money.
Hmm.
So it oftentimes will help too, at the same time, to keep the sessions moving.
And do you have a chance to do like a test recording, for example, before you actually go there with the band just to see how it probably works out? Like, for example, in the underground, I would personally expect like a lot of echo probably because there are a lot of tiles that will reflect the sound.
Well, you would think that, but if you do close miking, then you have the option of either a intimate sound or a big sound. So, because of my experience in doing these types of recording, I don't do any advanced research or recording in these places. For one thing, like in the underground, they would have charged for that. So we weren't going to
Yeah.
do that. And plus, there is always a chance that it won't work. And when I talk to an artist about doing one of these events, I make sure to let them know, this might work, it might not work. If it doesn't work, then we'll just have had this experience,
Hmm.
and that's enough. So yeah, generally I don't do any advanced testing in order, and then it just is very spontaneous.
Hmm.
So if it doesn't work out, we're not entirely disappointed.
Hmm. You're kind of prepared that it may just not work. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool when everyone is in on that. Why not? That's pretty brave though, I'd say.
Oh, it's fun though. It's just the best fun ever.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have a lot of fun doing that, and you get around and see different places too, and
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, and what a great job it is, right? Uh, Music recording is the best job in the world. I mean, I can't believe it. Some of the places I've been doing this type of work, but you have to you have to create your own reality with this. When you're an audio engineer or producer, you can create a reality like this. You just have to have the attitude of not taking the shortcut. Make sure that you never take a shortcut. Like, always go the long way around if you can do it. I mean, if you have to build a microphone to get a certain effect,
Hmm.
go ahead and do it. At least try. So it's a different way of doing things, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just the exact opposite of what you would expect. And that is what really, gives it that kind of mysterious touch that makes it just really interesting and exciting and yes, just fun to do and probably fun to listen to as well.
I think that the recordings, you can tell, even if you don't know where it's been recorded, you can tell that there's something different about these recordings. Like the Tomb recording, you can hear it in the way it's performed,
Hmm.
that there's an imprint of the environment in the recording, which is a kind of a hard to identify thing, but I think it's really there. And technology today is such that these types of adventure recordings can be done, just with a little thing under your arm in your coat.
Yeah.
I hope other people grab this idea and go for it, because it really is a great thing.
Yes, absolutely. Now, another question then is, how do you convince the artists to actually go for it? Because I can imagine that at the first time, the artists were kind of irritated when you said, let's go to a tomb or to the underground and do a recording.
Yeah, sometimes there's an artist that just doesn't want to do anything outside of the studio. And then we have other things we can do in the studio that also include some kind of experimentation with equipment. And that's okay too. But if I am planning a session with an artist who is adventurous, then we'll throw out ideas to each other and we collaborate on what we're going to do, what we're going to perform there, how we're going to record it, how we're going to pay for it if we need to, finance it somehow, the adventure, and then we make it happen. So it's not hard to convince the right people, but I won't push. If someone's not interested in that kind of thing, then I won't push. We will need to get our work done. And that's maybe more important. It is more important than going off on an adventure. But usually the artists that hire me on projects are a bit adventurous to begin with.
Yeah, fair enough. Because it probably wouldn't even make sense, right? Trying to force people to do something they're not comfortable with. And, there's a lot of emotions and energy going on during the recording, and that would probably just not work out.
Yeah, people get nervous when they're recording. Being a musician is a delicate thing. They're expressing their inner emotion. So,
exactly.
You have to be careful. Yeah, sure.
Well, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned that little portable recorder you have.
Yes.
What else do you bring along on your adventures?
I typically will bring some very standard microphones, usually handheld SM58, which is a Shure microphone,
Classic,
which is, pretty burly and doesn't get broken easily. So in case, I have had a few things break on these trips. So I wanted to use some robust microphones, and they're dynamic, so they take the pressure well. And the other thing is just to be prepared with enough media to record is very important. Batteries,
battery packs,
these kind of things. Yeah, but it's very simple to just have this one unit and to prepare the session beforehand, the program. I program it beforehand so that when we go down, there's not a lot of, futzing around with the gear. It's pretty much ready to go. And that's pretty much it. The Sound Devices unit has been extremely handy for places that don't have on-site power. But for other places, if I have a chance to set up a rig, I'll set up something like in the power plant. I used a Behringer X32, which was a rack mount, which had which needed power, and they had power there. Well, it was a power plant. There wasn't a place to plug it in. So we were able to record with the 32 inputs on that particular session, which was way more than we needed. Usually the 8 input Sound Devices will be enough for these types of recordings. But there's, sometime in the future, I think they'll probably have a much higher microphone count for microphone pre's in these portable units. And I'll be able to do maybe a string section in a glacier or something. That would be an interesting thing to
Yeah,
record.
absolutely. Probably gives you like a
Little one
huge
goes,
sound.
really.
Yeah, so how do you actually go about recording? Do you pick out certain instruments, like let's say just the guitars or just the drums, or do you actually record the whole song with the whole instruments in that particular location?
I'll try whatever it seems like we could do. Like the power plant, we did the entire band. There was guitar, bass, drums, and a singer, and a theremin.
Okay, wow, that's exotic.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were able to work with everybody together. But in other places, it may be just one instrument. In the and we had the band was a band called Goddamn,
Okay.
and they are a two-piece. There was drums and guitar and singer. The guitarist was also the singer.
Mm.
So we recorded them separately, but that was the entire musical combo was those two together. So and then in the Tomb, it was acoustic guitar and vocal, which was not so difficult. Other places, it'll be just the singer or just a guitar or some other instrument. Like another thing to do that's great fun is to go into cathedrals and work with the organist to record the big pipe organs. And some cathedrals, like there's a place we recorded in Sweden, in Gothenburg, that had an immense pipe organ, and I brought my recording rig in there and recorded the organist from the church. We gave him sheets of music, and he added parts onto our recording, and it was
That's cool.
amazing. And of course, these are like the biggest instruments in the
Yeah.
world, so it's exciting to do that kind of thing too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You've probably, well, not probably, I'm 100% sure that you've tried out a lot of different things and experimented a lot.
Oh, but there's so much more, right? It's unlimited amount of things to try.
Yeah, never ending story, basically.
Yeah.
So, have you ever encountered any like really, really bad issues or problems that just kind of, where you stood there and said, okay, this is just not gonna work?
You know, it hasn't happened.
Really?
It somehow get through every time it works out. Let me think. No, I think there sometimes there's noisiness with a microphone or one time it was, oh boy, one time the digital IO didn't work.
Oh,
And this was in the bell tower in Prague, and we had climbed all the way to the top. And I brought not only one of these units, I brought two of them, and had tested it all beforehand, and everything was working great. But for some reason, when I got up to the top of the bell tower, neither of them would turn on, and I could not figure out what it was. So I just got my iPhone and recorded on my iPhone, and it was okay. We still used it in the track. So there's always some backup. You have to be spontaneous sometimes. But that was a close one, but not disappointing. Ultimately, it worked out. It still worked out.
that's interesting because they're basically computers or even almost better than computers already.
Yeah.
And that's actually interesting that you recorded it on a phone because obviously they're not known for their awesome audio quality.
Well, the iPhones and phones today are so tremendous. In fact, I have my setup here is so that I can do video, documentary video, and talk about microphones. And I have a little controller here. This is by Keith McMillan.
Ah, yeah.
And I have iPhones set up 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And I can go between them. Let's see if it's working now. Let's see. We got this one. We've got this one. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Can you see that? Right. We've got this one, and this is, oh, that one's stuck. That one's not working. Okay. Let's see. I've got this one here. It's because I've been doing a video on microphones, so I've been talking about this microphone here, and
Okay, what is that microphone?
this is an RCA MI 4010, which is the RCA Junior. It's very, very close to the RCA 44, but it's the miniaturized version that you could use. If you could buy it if you were interested in the sound of a ribbon, a 44 ribbon. Here's an actual 44 ribbon. This big guy.
Oh yeah, that looks
But
tremendous.
they were very expensive. So if you couldn't afford the big one, then you could just buy one of these juniors for half the price. In 1935, this was you had to pay maybe $35.
Oh wow, that's
But
cheap.
but the 44 actually was $80, and in today's money, $80 is $1,500. And so actually in the Great Depression in 1935, not many people were buying $1,500 microphones, only radio stations. So anyway, but back to the subject of these iPhones, the video is beautiful on these iPhones, right? I mean,
Yeah, they even do 4K.
these are just iPhones,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it's a whole new world. These iPhones you're right. They're incredible computers right in your hand.
Yeah, exactly. And they're small. You just put them in your pocket, take them everywhere, no problem.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. And actually, talking about those microphones you have now, you have a museum.
Yeah.
Do you bring those on your adventures sometimes?
Oh boy. Sometimes I'll bring a few, but the microphones are very precious, and our museum has 2,000 of them. So
You wouldn't want to bring all at once then.
But there's some very, very special mics in the collection, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a video series that features one mic every episode, and it's really fun. It's called Mic du Jour.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Actually, that's interesting because, I took a look at your website, and there was just those things that you said were microphones that I had never seen before. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's all kinds of microphones, things that I never knew. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but there's so much that I'm still learning, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to really know microphones the way that I'm getting to learn about them now.
Have you tried all of them?
No. In fact, some of them need work in order to get them wired up. But for the ones that are working, they sound good. In fact, I'll give you a sample because I've got one set up here now.
Cool.
I have a lavalier on, but I'm going to turn down the lavalier and we can listen to this one. This is a BK11A, and I have it all.
That looks pretty heavy.
It's actually it's not so heavy, but it's a beautiful ribbon. And let me see if I can get my mic pre going here. You can see I've got this Focusrite ISA1 mic pre here, and I don't want to have the phantom power on because I'll hurt the ribbon. But let's see. I'll turn down my lavalier and turn this up and see if it works. Check. Oh yeah. Listen to that mic. Isn't that a nice mic?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's very warm.
And this is a very old mic too. This might be 50, 60 years old. I think probably 60 years old. Amazing.
Cool, yes.
And then it's a figure eight pattern. So we get the front and the back. And so check. You can see check. No sound on the side, right?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. And, keeping in mind how old it is, it's just impressive that at that time they already, built something like that.
Oh yeah, no. Most microphone technology was developed in the 20s and 30s. It really hasn't changed a whole lot since the 50s. So these early mics are still very, very good. Some of them don't have enough shielding, so they're a bit noisy. But mics like this was a later version of the Junior, so it was a very well shielded
Hmm.
mic and it has low noise, and it sounds fantastic. I'm very pleased with that. But eventually, all 2,000 mics in this collection, I'll try them each if I
Hmm.
can, but it's probably going to take a long
Oh
time.
yeah.
So I'll be working on this. I'll be working on this for the rest of my life, no doubt.
Do you still look for microphones, or do you say, I've got 2000, I think that's enough for now?
No, it's an illness, and I'm still buying microphones. It's yeah. I'm always in trouble with my manager. He's like he can't believe that I would spend money on. Now it's Russian mics. I don't have enough Russian mics,
Okay.
so yeah. There you go. And there's some Czech mics that are very nice
Hmm.
too. The Teslas.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very big and interesting topic for sure.
Yeah.
A lot to explore there too.
Yeah, for sure.
So cool. Now coming back from our little microphone trip here, did you actually ever go to one of those experimental places and you recorded something and you said, like that didn't turn out as expected as all, but in a very positive way?
Let me think. Well, to be honest, when we recorded "Goddamn" in the London Underground, I didn't think that it would work. It was very boomy. But then you have the close miking. You have the option of using the close mics and having it a tight sound,
Hmm.
and then adding the room. So actually, it was so good that we used it on the record as the main tracking for that
Okay.
particular song. It was an important song, but it worked out so well. And I honestly didn't know if it was going to work out, for one reason, because we only had 1 hour
Hmm.
and we were so rushed to get it done that I wasn't sure that we would have achieved what we wanted. But in fact, it did work out. And 1 hour was enough time to do that with one song.
Wow, cool. Yeah, that is actually,
Yeah.
1 hour is not a whole lot. And keeping in mind that you had to run up and down all those stairs with all that equipment.
Yeah. 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 It was nuts, but it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And if I remember right, I think I read that you were thinking of recording a volcano or in a volcano. Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yes. We were thinking of doing a recording in Iceland. Now you have the option of a glacier
Hmm.
and a volcano all in the same place, right?
Yeah,
A live volcano. But ultimately it didn't work out, and I'm glad, because I believe that volcano did erupt. We would have been in trouble if we
yeah.
were on the volcano when that happened. So, but I was thinking, wouldn't it be really exciting to record next to lava that was flowing?
That would have
Um,
definitely given you a kick.
Maybe we don't need to do that. But another thing that I was really hoping for was, but could still happen in the future, is to travel to Antarctica.
Mhm.
And we have a microphone in the collection, in the museum, that was used in the first expedition to the South Pole.
Wow,
So yeah, so the idea is to take this same microphone and bring it back to the South
that
Pole
would be
and
cool.
do some recording with it.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be great?
that would be
Yeah,
cool.
so
Yeah.
that's still in the works, but we've all been sidelined because of the pandemic, so
Yeah.
we'll have to wait. Yeah,
Yeah, that is giving all of us a pretty hard time, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like nowadays, you have the option to do remote recording as well. So did you ever choose to do that for certain places, or do you always go on the spot?
Remote recording now. What did you mean by that?
Well,
Is
if you
it?
basically record my mic right now from the US.
Yeah.
Like that. So
Oh,
you're not
I
actually on the
haven't done
spot.
that. No, I haven't. I haven't actually done that type of remote recording. Uh, Not yet, because it's much more effective if you're there in person. I mean, it's already separating to have the producer and the musician in separate rooms with glass in between, but way removed to have the producer and the musician, on other sides of the world. So maybe it would work in some cases, but I just haven't had a need to do that yet. I prefer to be actually in the same room with the musicians that I'm working with. If we can work together in the same space, then the communication is instant. I oftentimes will have the vocal microphone right next to me and have the vocalist standing next to me singing, so that we can communicate ideas, and I can give direction right away. We both have headphones on, and it seems to work really well. And the same with the entire recording. Like if I have a group of musicians, I want to be in the same room with them as much as possible when the recording is happening. So I am very quiet, I wear headphones, and I know my equipment, so I can get the results that I want.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. From what you just said, I kind of get that you do some other sort of remote recording.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's when I carry my rig under my arm. That kind of
Okay.
remote recording. Yeah. But yeah, the long distance recording is something new that I'll have to try. And maybe there's some ways to make it work, and there may be advantages to it. I mean, obviously, it saves money because you don't have to all travel and be together.
Yeah.
And sometimes that would work. But so far, I haven't done that. Now, maybe you could tell me, what are the best programs to do that with?
Oh, I honestly, I've never done myself. Like I know I've talked to people that have done it, and I've actually on the third episode I've talked to a mastering engineer that does a lot of online mixing and mastering, and
Yeah,
he
right.
uses audio movers, I believe.
Okay.
And that is some kind of plugin that enables the listener to actually listen to his session from his workstation. So there's no loss in audio quality or anything like that. But I'm not 100%
Right.
sure. But that is that's a pretty interesting trend, I believe.
And, as you're talking about that, I do remote mixing, which
Okay.
is with people send me files, and I'll work on the mix and then play it for them. And we work on it together long distance. Now that does work, but the actual recording part, that's different.
Yeah, would be interesting to try out for sure. On the other hand,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't want to miss out going to those places and recording it
Right?
right on the
Yeah.
spot, because
Right.
it just sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, very much fun.
Yeah, cool. And then once you got everything recorded, you take your audio back to the studio and then get to all the editing and mixing and mastering. And
Right.
do you find it more difficult to mix and master than if you'd record it right in the studio in a clean environment, I say?
Sometimes you'll have some unexpected work to bring it around to the quality of a studio recording. But for the most part, I think it's the performance is more important than the quality, the ultimate quality of the recording. I think a great song, a great performer, with a recording with this could be better than a bad song with musicians that don't play very well in the best studio. It's really
Right.
about the song and the performer. So these little things that might happen when you're recording in unconventional ways, sometimes sometimes it works. Sometimes mistakes, they become on purpose, like you want those mistakes so that you can just check yourself and make sure that you're not ironing out all the fun, and the humanness in a performance.
Right. Yeah, that's actually especially, since you can basically create whole songs in an audio workstation, right? Like that topic comes
Yeah,
up quite a lot.
right.
So you don't want to have it sound like a machine created it.
Right, and that's where I talk about taking the long way around whenever possible. So, like if you have a workstation and you have the 15 best pianos on your workstation, then you just play, and there's no care with it's a good recording, but it's somebody else's recording. You didn't record that piano. Now, if you have the actual piano in front of you and you mic it and you record that piano, you're going to get a different performance, and it may not be as perfect as your workstation, but there will be a character that you will get there that you don't get with the workstation sampling piano. So the long way around is how I like to record whenever possible. I mean, obviously, if you can't always rent a grand piano,
Yeah, right.
right? But whenever possible, we'll try to use the actual instrument instead of just using a sample. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Also gives you a, more chances to just experiment with, things like mic placing, for example.
Yeah. And different types of microphones.
Yeah, even that. And
Yeah.
especially when you have 2,000 of them.
Yeah. Oh boy, you wouldn't believe how I'm like a kid in a candy store every day.
That's cool. I can imagine like you probably could just go in there and, spot something new and exciting every day.
Every day. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, interesting. Sylvia, do you happen to have any tips maybe for or even tricks for beginners, or obviously now not every one of our listeners has the chance to go to places and pay for admission and bring a lot of equipment. So how can I basically do that maybe as a home producer, or when I have a small studio?
Well, here's how you could start. You could start just with this, with your iPhone or your phone, whatever it is, and go out and try some things, and see what you can come up with. You can also, just by recording with your phone, you can try different types of recordings. You could do close miking, you could do vocals. There's built-in compression, which is actually very good in these recorders in your phone. So you can try different things, and like in the early radio, there would only be one microphone, and everyone would stand around the microphone and then step forward when it was their time for a solo. Well, you could choreograph a group of musicians to do the same thing, and you could be out on the top of a mountain somewhere,
Right.
and actually record them, and choreograph how they'll step forward and step back when it's their time to solo. I mean, why not try some of these things? Take the long way around. That's what I say. Also, just try every genre of music. And if you're just starting out, record as many different types of music as you can and as many musicians as you can to build up your discography, because everybody wants to know, well, what have you done? So,
right.
the longer list that you have, the more they will trust you. And it's about trust. So you want to build trust with musicians that you haven't worked with yet, and then they'll call on you. It takes time to build this trust. So if you really want to go for it, you might want to move to a place like move to Berlin or move to Los Angeles or New York. And if you do that, then you need to allow a certain amount of time to gain the trust of the people in that place. So if you move to, let's say, London, plan on being there and not being a paid engineer or producer for maybe 2 years, and just build these relationships and build your discography and be patient, and then the ball will start rolling, and then all of a sudden you're extremely busy and making great records. So it takes time. So be patient.
Yeah, awesome. How would I go about approaching a band with, an adventurous recording? Because I can imagine, especially when you're just starting out and, you got maybe your fifth or maybe even your 10th band, and you look at them and you're like, hey guys, you want to go to a cave and record? They're probably going to give you a pretty weird look.
One thing you can do, and this may be difficult for some people, but if you're able to finance the entire thing somehow, getting support from whatever, without record label, money, but just say, look, I have time in this church on this Sunday. And if you come at 10 o'clock, we can do this recording. I have all the equipment, and, offer these things to them. And then if they don't want it, then somebody else will, because people need their music recorded. And especially if you know that artist's music and you say, look, this particular song, I think we need to record, and give them a reason why, and really be specific. And then that's where you start building trust. You might have to do a traditional style recording before jumping off the cliff and and doing an adventure recording, but eventually you build enough trust that everybody's like, yeah, let's go do this thing, and you can really have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you don't even, at the beginning, I don't think you even need to go to, any paid places or big places. You could even run out in the woods and record, right?
Absolutely. Or you could sneak into an art museum.
Even better.
Right?
Great. Yeah. Awesome. But now you're not only creative outside the studio, you've also done a couple of fun and different things inside the studio.
Yes, recording. Yeah. See, so you don't have to be outside the studio to do some interesting recordings. Oftentimes I'll bring in some types of amplifiers and filters to change the sound of the microphone signals. So I get very experimental with these things. And so I use filters like light bulbs, make very interesting audio filters. Also,
really?
Yeah, and they light when you run audio through them, they'll light up, and depending on the type of light bulb, you get a different effect. So the fluorescent bulbs are especially good for the distortion.
How exactly do you do that?
Well, you take a very powerful amplifier, and you take the speaker output of that amplifier, and between the speaker output of the amp and the speaker, you insert something into that line. So on one leg of the line. So you could put the light bulb, you divert the line to go into the light bulb. And when you hit certain frequencies, somewhere around 60 hertz, it acts like an electric signal, or electric power from the wall socket, 50 or 60 hertz, depending on where you're at. And so you hit a certain note, the light bulb lights up, and then you get this effect depending on the type of light bulb. The fluorescents are great. There's LEDs, there's halogen, there's incandescent, different kinds of materials in the filaments, and they all sound a little different. And then you take that same idea and you run the audio signal through an electrical appliance or tool like a drill, and the drill will start up when you run the audio through it, and you get the sound of the electronics of the drill plus the harmonics of the motor running, and the motor will run.
Right.
If you run the audio through it, the motor will start up and you get this harmonic kind of spinning sound. It's crazy good for certain types of musical, solos or something like that. And it's wild. It's unpredictable. It's also kind of dangerous. So I suggest that if anyone is going to try these things, that they're very, very careful to connect all the cables without using power from the wall, and then plug the amp into the power in the wall at the last step, so that you're not playing with live wires, because it can be very dangerous. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of fun, and people get excited about that too. If you're stuck inside, you can't go out and do some adventure recording. Well, you can bring the adventure inside too.
Exactly. And like, it's just amazing. I don't even know what to say, because like coming up with putting a light bulb there, that's just out of this world.
Well, when you start thinking about it, I mean, there's all kinds of other things that haven't been done yet too, that I'm excited about trying. And so I've got a list. I've got that list in my brain there, that my clipboard, that I keep these things all written up on.
Cool. Just before we get to the end of this podcast, now I'd like to speak about the dick mic that you've come up with. I think that's something that probably most people can realize without, taking a huge risk. And,
right. Well,
fun to do, I can imagine.
Let me explain what the dick mic is, and it's probably better to call it something other than a dick mic, but because of the Me Too and all that. But basically, a drummer has a drum kit, and it's set up with the toms in front, and then they're on a chair, and then there's a kick drum and usually a snare off to one side. So if you put one mic right in the middle, basically pointed at the drummer's parts.
Fun parts.
Yeah, fun parts. Then that one mic on its own can capture everything in the kit. So it becomes a very good overall miking technique. Now, some people call it the gooch. So I've started to call it the gooch mic. It's a much better and more PC type of name for the mic. But the gooch mic then is one miking position that captures the entire drum kit. And oftentimes I'll use that mic and then I'll put it into kind of a muscular compressor. And then that will grab that sound and help it to become more exciting, and it really puts it up into your face. But because it's so close and it's like inside the drum kit, basically, you get all the drums, and it becomes very exciting. So that is a very good technique. So whatever you call it, if it's the dick or the gooch or whatever, the crotch mic.
As long as it works, it doesn't matter what they call it, right?
Right. And oftentimes I'll just use an inexpensive mic for that position, like a SM58. Again, my favorite overall mic is the Shure SM58, and you put that right there, and it's just going to get the whole drum kit.
And do you kind of use it the way you would add parallel compression, like, to just give it that tiny bit of extra sparkle or that just tiny bit of excitement? Or
sometimes I'll do parallel. Yeah. Oftentimes I'll just run it straight through the compression. And then, but I'll make sure that I have other types of microphones that I can add compression to later. I don't put a lot of compression in the initial track in the drums. I like to keep it open enough so that I can use compression later to taste. for that particular song. But when it comes to room mics and when it comes to this type of mic, I'll go ahead and just be daring and put that compression on there and crank it, and then it'll give that excitement when we're tracking too, so that everyone can have it in their headphones and hear what's going on, and it makes everyone exciting.
Yeah, cool. That is a good tip and trick to try out. And, anyone can basically do it when recording drums.
Sure.
It's just an extra
It might
mic
even be the only mic that you have on the drum kit. And that's the position to put your mic, if you have only one mic.
There we go. Guys, write that down.
Guys.
Guys, girls, yes.
Right.
You know what, the audio segment has way more guys than girls.
Yeah. That's why it's the dick mic and not something else.
There you have it.
Hi, folks.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. That was very interesting, very inspiring for sure.
Christoph, it was really great talking with you.
Yes, it was nice talking to you too. Nice meeting you finally. And thanks for your time. Thanks for all your tips. And you definitely left all of us with a lot to think about and a lot of new ideas. And I'm sure that some of our listeners will have a chance to try some of your tips.
I hope so.
So thank you for your time, Sylvia. And wish you a lot of fun on your next adventure that will come up for sure.
And I hope that your recordings are adventures too.
For sure. From now on, they will be.
Good.